All right, welcome everyone. Please come in, take a seat. This is going to be a lightning session. We've only got 20 minutes together. So I love the conversation. It's going to be an interactive session, so please. All right, welcome. So please don't let me lecture you. Let's keep it conversational, keep it going. I've been on 9 planes this week, so if you can keep me awake, you'll be doing me a favor. You know, ask the hard questions. So my name is Andrew Madson. I'm a developer advocate at Dremio. Before my life making TikToks for Dremio, I led data teams as VP of Analytics and AI at JP Morgan, Senior Director of Analytics and AI at ASU, a bunch of other stuff. On the side, I'm a professor of data science in a bunch of different grad programs. I'm an easy grader, so if you want your kids to get an A, put them in my class. Check. But most importantly, I just got my silver play button on YouTube. So now my wife has to introduce me as her influencer husband. We'll see how long that lasts. You know, it just started. She doesn't see me anyway because I'm always on the road. I did bring some stickers from Dremio, but who doesn't love free stuff? So please get yourself a copy of the Apache Iceberg, the Definitive Guide O'Reilly book. I think it's $70 on Amazon, so please get the free version. You'll be doing yourself a favor. We're writing another O'Reilly book right now in the Iceberg ecosystem to be coming out here in just a few months. What's Dremio? I promise this is the only slide. And then when my boss says, hey, did he say the word Dremio? You can say, yes, he did. And then we can move on with our lives. So Dremio, what is it? It's a data lakehouse platform. There's unified analytics, SQL query engine, full lakehouse management, autonomous data management, integrate sources, hybrid, on-prem, multi-cloud. That's Dremio. But what are we here to talk about today? I mean, a pretty esoteric topic. Nothing that ever comes up in the news at all. You know, DeepSeek, AI, what's going on? But we're also talking about Iceberg. I was in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, meeting with a bunch of the heads of AI at some of the government institutions, and they were in on DeepSeek. They loved it. They're like, what's your opinion on DeepSeek? So I would love to hear your opinion on DeepSeek. But we're here to talk about Iceberg and where it fits in AI. Because AI is here, right? It reminds me a lot of the digital revolution from maybe 8 years ago, where that was really a kind of a top-down initiative. Us as data people, a lot of our time is spent bottoms up, saying, hey, here's these things that we really should work on, and then we're trying to get leadership buy-in. This, similar to digital transformation, is coming from top down. This is boards saying, hey, here's some money, go do it. This is AI. So according to Gartner, 75% of boards are making AI, quote unquote AI, one of their top 5 investments for 2026 at least, and top 3 for 2025. So what's the opportunity? So because it's coming top down, of course, there's business metrics assigned to this, right? They're looking for innovation, and there's going to be some metrics around like, what does innovation really mean? It may mean something different in the business world than it does in tech world and for us. And at least 11 executives believe, more than half of the executives believe that productivity will increase by at least 11%. And we see that in the use cases. The Menlo Ventures just released a report in November of the top use cases for generative AI for the executives that they surveyed. Number 1 was copilots, coding copilots. I think we can see that across enterprises and mid-market, small companies, lots of coding copilots. Number 2, any guesses? What do you think the second largest use case of generative AI is? So we've got coding copilots as number 1, like by a far margin. What do you think? Call centers? It was top 5. It was close though. What do you think?
Chatbots?
Chatbots is number 3. Chatbots is number 3. What's the second one? Put your executive hats on. What do we care about? Money. So what is going to save us the most money? Automation. Automating processes, operations is number two. And with the executives that I've been meeting with this year, I mean, what day is it? It's the 30th. I've spent 27 days in hotels talking to executives about AI. And I can confirm that these are their top priorities, like on the ground. So Menlo got this right. And they're expecting, of course, a bunch of revenue. But what is AI? So this is something that has come up a lot with meeting with the C-level data folks. They're saying, hey, my CEO, CIO is saying do AI, but they don't really know what AI is, right? Like we're old enough to remember when AI was deep learning, right? And it still is, but deep learning, neural networks, it's been around since, 50s really. But what's your definition of AI? If somebody came to you and said, hey, what's AI? What does that mean? Anybody want to be brave? What's AI? What's your elevator pitch on this is AI? Yeah.
Just software.
Just software? Okay. Is Salesforce AI? They want you to think so. What's AI? Anybody else got a good one? Do any of us know what AI is? Yeah, what's AI?
I can talk to a computer with natural language.
Okay, so natural language interaction.
NLP plus machine learning.
NLP and machine learning. Yeah, I like that. Any other definitions? Are we all kind of like, yeah, what's it?
It's like an algorithm that's just able to reason, generally capable.
Okay, so an algorithm, kind of like optimizing towards some objective with minimal human interaction, something like that? Intervention. Okay, awesome. So it's been around for a while, and when we see AI in the news, typically it's kind of talking about generative AI, because we're like, oh, we can do neural networks, like that's we've been doing that for years. We can do your AI, check the box. But when it comes to actually putting pedal to the metal and getting an AI system up and going, it's great to focus on the models. And we're so good at that. Coming from data science background, we're really good at the CI/CD with models, watching model drift. We're really good at using Amazon SageMaker. That's right, we're at Amazon right now. Bonus point for me. So we're used to this with the continuous improvement with the models. What I'm seeing often is that we forget the data part, and that an AI system is the data and the model, and that the data also needs that same robust CI/CD care. And with that, because your AI training data needs to reflect the truth that the inference pipeline is going to experience. And if there's a truth gap between when the data is created and when it's curated, now we've got a problem, especially if there's big shifts in the reality, right? And we saw that. We've seen some machine learning and some AI mishaps that have resulted in some financial challenges for some companies. So we need to focus on the data as part of our AI strategy. And we've been in, if you've been in data longer than 5 minutes, this is the drumbeat we've been hitting for years, right? Like this is the same thing we've been saying about analytics, same thing we've been saying about machine learning, and now we're saying it about AI. But why is this different? Well, AI, if you're implementing generative AI, it does give you the opportunity to fail fast, but also fail immensely. So there can be vast consequences for a generative AI failure, especially if it's public facing. So Donald Knuth, the father of analysis algorithms, I think 1974, Turing Award winner. I love him. He's really great. But he says premature optimization is the root of all evil. And I think us as data folks, engineers, scientists, we love to optimize things. And sometimes it's focusing on that model. It's doing that feature selection. It's doing the fine tuning on the model or implementing our RAG, but we don't necessarily have our foundations in place with the data. So it can be premature. If our model is much more mature than our data, we could have an AI system failure. With ChatGPT, they're a great example of this, in my opinion. This is the brain trust here. It's safe circle, even though it's being broadcast, so I won't drop certain names when I tell bad stories. But so feel free to disagree. I don't have to be right all the time. But data was the competitive advantage, in my opinion, for ChatGPT. It drove their innovation. So for GPT-1, I never played with it, but I heard it was really bad comparative to what's around now. 4.8 gigabytes of unfiltered data. What got us to GPT-2? 40 gigabytes of human filtered data. What got us to GPT-3? You know, we're almost to the turning point, GPT 3.5. 570 gigabytes of filtered data down from 45 terabytes of raw data. So really curated data. What got us to that big turning point, 3.5 and 4? That human labeling feedback loop, super high quality data. But what about the model? That's a transformer model. I'm not saying they didn't improve the model, but it's not a new innovation. They didn't create a new model. Reasoning, chain of thought, there's a case for that. But moving from 3 to 4, that wasn't model innovation per se, but that was an increase in data quality. Both scope and quality of the data helped get from ChatGPT 1 to ChatGPT 4. And so in that AI system, there's really model parity. If AI systems are our model and our data, there's model parity now, I would argue. Feel free to disagree. Remember, been on 9 planes, I could say crazy things. But we can API into all these models, right? Azure just put DeepSeek R1 into Azure Data Factory, right? So we can all use the same models. We're not, maybe we are inventing new models. Some of you look smart enough, you're inventing new models. But Hugging Face has, I don't even know how many models, so many models available. We all have the same models available, but data can be our competitive advantage. Because when you get those models, now we can distill information, we can fine tune, we could implement a RAG or a graph RAG on top of that, but it requires a strong data foundation. And we know that this is a challenge. We've seen analytics problems fails. We all hear that statistic, which I think could be made up, but we all hear it. 90% of analytics projects, machine learning projects, data projects fail. I don't know where that comes from, but I've heard it quoted many times, so it means it's probably fake. Anytime there's like a round number, it's like 70%, immediately I'm like, that's fake. But 72%, this comes from MIT in 2022, 72% of CIOs said that data problems were most likely to jeopardize AI ML. And I feel like that's true from just my experience trying to deploy AI and ML models. Data was often very challenging. Gartner agrees. Whether or not you agree with Gartner, yeah, we could talk about that. There's a case either way for that. But by 2026, they're saying they're projecting 60% of AI projects will fail overall, and 30% of AI projects will fail. Again, remember, round numbers, maybe made up. So 30% of those will fail specifically because of data quality. That's what Gartner's saying. So data quality is clearly a problem, especially for AI, especially for multimodal AI, right? Because when Bill Inman rolls out data warehouses, he's saying, we're going to create a central repository, right? This is late 80s, early 90s. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure. 87, right? He rolls it out. Nobody's correcting me? Okay. We'll roll with it. 87. He says this is going to be a central repository for all our data because we have these databases connected to applications, right? Pretty simple, structured data, awesome. He's saying let's consolidate these, have a central repository. We roll with that, but then different teams start building their own central repositories. Now we've got all these central repositories all over the enterprise. But he's saying the same thing for data lakes. He's like, it's an architectural pattern. He's like, there should be a central repository of data on your data lake. Let's call it a lakehouse. Really, in his opinion, and he's the boss, it could be called a warehouse, but we're calling it a lakehouse. Well, what's the challenge with this data? Silos. Like, who's ever seen a organization that's not a startup with no data silos. Anybody? No data silo problems? Okay. Somebody did tell me that they had one. I'm like, is it a startup? He's like, yeah, it's my company. I'm like, yeah, how many employees are there? 3? Yeah, there were. So anyway, data silos. It comes naturally. We acquire companies. There's growth. The tech stacks grow. We have different operating models. Sometimes silos happen, and sometimes they should happen. Sometimes there should be purposeful silos, but a lot of times they're just fragmented. It's not on purpose. Got poor data quality, there's duplicate data, there's not a single source of truth. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but you have to know what the data is and why it's represented in the way that it is and where it is and which data that you should be using. There's a lack of metadata, there's a lack of governance, or there's too much governance? Can I say that? Access becomes a challenge. You have to, especially in heavily regulated industries, we have to manage governance, access control, data privacy. Here in California, we've got CCPA, CPRA, our global companies, we've got GDPR, the EU AI Act. We've got all these things, and then we've got our ethical responsibility beyond the letter of the law. But we have to be able to build things. We have to be able to be agile and flexible. We need to figure that out. Limited data access, insufficient metadata, we can end up stifling our stakeholders in data, marketing, risk, finance. We can become, instead of those fueling initiatives and providing the data, every organization says we're a data-driven organization, but when you actually look at the numbers, most are not. And sometimes we're the problem as data people. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes we're the problem because we can stifle innovation with bottlenecks. An example of what that can typically look like, let me know if this sounds familiar. So if you're a data scientist, AI engineer, data analyst, and you need to get some data, you don't happen to be a data engineer, what are you going to do? You're going to submit a request to your potentially central data engineering team through Jira. Don't get me started. So we're going to put that on we're going to send in a Jira ticket. They're going to throw it on the backlog because they don't know you and they're busy. By the time they get around to it, hopefully it's the right data. If it's not the right data for your AI ML analytics project, what do? You go back into Jira ticket hell. And then we start the cycle over. And central engineering's busy, you're busy, stakeholders are busy, everybody's busy, and the system just doesn't seem working. It's hard for the central data engineering team because of all those things we looked at. Data silos, lack of access, lack of observability. So another buzzword, I don't want this to be hand wavy, but this is like your relaxing session of everybody else did lots of coding and now Andrew's gonna come and be fun. So data products. Data products can be a solution to this. Data products in general, there's different definitions of this. Different vendors happen to define them in ways that suit their product capabilities, which is fine. I get it. But the way I look at it, and everybody can have their own definition of data products, that's totally excellent. That helps the community. Data products should at least there should be some ownership, discoverability. If you have to be able to find the data, you should be able to, in some way, self-serve to get that data. It needs to be governed in some way, consumable, observable, it needs to be trustworthy. So when we discover the data, semantic search helps a lot. I'm seeing a lot of AI augment search capabilities for data exploration. The development cycle with data, we can learn so much from our software engineering counterparts with their rigorous process of the dev prod cycle, which Iceberg can help a lot with, but being able to develop views, to experiment, to iterate, and then to deploy, to get that into prod with a robust CI/CD process on the data side. Be able to have some kind of governance, whether that's centralized, federated. There can be decentralized governance, but I think it's pretty rare. I think it's more common to either have kind of a fabric approach where there's a strong, at least, security and governance layer, and then maybe federate out some of the ownership aspects. We need to be able to serve. Can we access this data product via API? Who can access it? How can they access it? When can they access it? What's their use case? And is it observable? Is there lineage? How do we handle incident management? How can we audit this? If you've been in product before, this is very similar to ownership, right? We need to own our data. Somebody needs to own our data. Is it the business? Is it you? It really depends on the organization. I've seen it work in a strongly centralized, a federated, a hub and spoke. I've never seen a fully decentralized, but I've seen federated leaning on decentralized. So done a lot of talking. I haven't said Iceberg more than like 3 times. So let's jump into Iceberg. So Iceberg, I mean, there's been so many great talks today. You know why Iceberg rules. Iceberg's awesome. We all love Iceberg. Open table format enables you to really integrate your data. That is one of the top problems or challenges that organizations have, regardless of size. Data integration, especially older organizations, banks, healthcare, they've got these legacy systems that are very hard to integrate data with, but they're also trying to move to the cloud, or they've got on-prem data gravity, and they want it to talk together, and then they've got some kind of janky Spark process to, loop it all together, and then the data engineers cry because it breaks all the time. But with Iceberg, having a data lakehouse as the core, I call this core and explore. The core of your data architecture, trying to migrate data, going Iceberg first if you can. Thinking, can we get this into Iceberg? Can we unify it? It doesn't necessarily have to physically move if it's in a data lake. It could be on-prem or maybe in a cloud or multi-cloud, whatever it is, whatever your architecture is. But that's the beauty and flexibility of Iceberg is if it's in a lake, you don't have to move it if the file format aligns with something you can put Iceberg into, Avro or Parquet. But not every use case. This is the challenge. This is where I've been meeting with lots of leaders, and they're like, well, Iceberg sounds great, but should we go they're looking for the simple solution of like, do this one thing and all your problems will go away. It doesn't work, right? Like Iceberg's not going to solve all of our problems. It solves a lot. We can minimize data silos for sure. It can help federate governance by integrating lots of our data sources together, getting that visibility, giving us that hidden partitioning, the schema evolution, the modular approach to being able to choose your different query engines, your different catalogs. The Iceberg REST catalog specification is awesome, but it's not the solution for everything. So how does that work? If you can have a core of your data lakehouse Iceberg approach, then in a data fit for purpose approach, you're able to then branch out as needed. Sometimes you do need a time series database for your sensor data, and you need specific time series functions that aren't available in Iceberg right now. That's fine, but we know why it's there. We don't have this massive data estate that's ungovernable. If we can consolidate and we go lakehouse first and then branch out as use cases are needed, then we are able to not have tons of different copies of our data. We're able to have more observability, control, flexibility to adapt our operating model to our needs. Vector databases, solid use case, not in most, right? You can't do vector in Iceberg, right? I know single store supports the Iceberg data type, but if you want to move to a vector database, you're probably not doing that on your lakehouse, right? So you need to core and explore. And I've seen that work a lot because now we're shrinking our data estate. We're controlling for costs. We're keeping our FinOps manager happy. And we're able to, one, manage our analytics and our core workflows, the things that's keeping our decisions running. And we're keeping our governance tight because now we can see all of our critical data. And we're able to expand and be flexible as needed by going into a graph database, a vector database, a time series database as needed, and we know where it is. So then manage your core analytics workflows while developing and deploying AI. So this is what it here's what a lakehouse could look like in practice. And this is a architecture slide, so you can tell a marketing person put this together. But essentially, like Iceberg's awesome because you're able to really, whether it's on-prem, in the cloud, we can use Iceberg, right? Iceberg is amazing. I'm a huge fan and super happy that it's here and with all the huge contributions from so many different people and companies. But with the top-down push of, hey, do AI, like do all the other stuff you're already doing, that's awesome, but also do AI on top of that. Here's a strategy that you can, or a mindset that you can come forward with of, how can I keep managing the core of my data operations? Should I adapt my operating model? And how can I strategically branch out into AI and ensure that I'm both maintaining my core, but driving that explore motion as well. I think data products are a strong part of that, but again, I don't want it to be hand wavy, like just dropping buzzwords. But data products is essentially bringing accountability and visibility and ownership to specific data that should be fit for purpose to drive specific business outcomes. All right, so thank you so much. This is a lightning session, so we had to really fly through that. But I really appreciate your time here. Please follow up with me with any questions afterwards. And of course, please get a free copy of the Iceberg Guide. Thank you so much.